Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third topic of our first module. In our previous sessions, we explored the historical roots of our nation and the intricate architecture of the Constitution itself. Today, we are going to tackle a concept that is often misunderstood as just a boring administrative detail, but is actually the vibrant, chaotic, and essential engine of American politics: federalism. We are going to look at how power is distributed, shared, and fought over in the United States. To begin, we must define exactly what we are dealing with. American federalism can be defined as a constitutional system of power distribution in which political authority is divided between a national government and subnational governments, the states, where both possess their own legitimacy and the capacity to govern directly over citizens. This is critical to understand. You, as a citizen in Miami, are subject to two distinct governments simultaneously. You pay federal taxes to Washington and sales taxes to Tallahassee. You follow federal aviation laws when you fly out of MIA and state traffic laws when you drive on the Palmetto. This configuration produces what the literature calls practical dual sovereignty, in which both levels coexist and partially overlap. Now, why did the founders choose this complex arrangement? American federalism does not arise from an abstract ideological preference for decentralization, but rather as a pragmatic institutional solution to a problem of scale. They faced a structural dilemma common to large republics: how to combine the political unity necessary for common defense, trade, and currency with the social and territorial plurality essential to preserving local identities. Imagine trying to run a country as vast as this one, from the snowy forests of Alaska to the tropical beaches of the Florida Keys, with a single set of local rules generated in one building in Washington, D.C. It would be impossible. Federalism allows for central coordination in the provision of national public goods like defense and interstate trade, while simultaneously preserving local autonomy to adapt policies to diverse contexts. However, this design comes with a built-in feature that many people mistake for a bug: conflict. A key consequence of this design is that jurisdictional conflict is not an anomaly, but a structural feature of the system. The Constitution does not establish rigid and immutable boundaries between powers. Instead, it leaves ample room for these boundaries to be continually negotiated through legislation, administrative practice, and litigation. When you see Florida suing the federal government or the federal government challenging a state law, the system is not breaking. It is working exactly as intended. These costs, administrative redundancy, and recurring disputes hinder the concentration of power and protect political diversity. To understand how this system operates today, we have to look at its evolution. Historically, we distinguish between two major logics. The first is dual federalism, which is an interpretive model primarily associated with the 18th and 19th centuries. This model is based on the idea that there are relatively distinguishable spheres of competence. The federal government deals with national affairs, and the states administer local affairs. In this layer cake model, cross-intervention was seen as exceptional. States were conceived as the primary guardians of civic and moral life, while the federal government was limited to common purposes. But as society became more complex, this model shifted toward what we call cooperative federalism. This model emerged clearly in the 20th century, especially following the New Deal, when the national government assumed a more active role in the economy and social welfare. The New Deal was a response to the Great Depression, a crisis that demonstrated that state governments alone could not handle modern economic collapse. Cooperative federalism is characterized by functional interdependence, federal regulations, national funding, state implementation, and intergovernmental oversight. It is no longer about separate spheres. It is about shared policies. Conflict here isn't just federal versus state, but disputes over incentive design and compliance conditions. Think about Medicaid or highway funding here in Florida. The money often comes from Washington, but the administration happens in Tallahassee. Today, contemporary federalism manifests less as a system of separate powers and more as a network of concurrent competencies. In areas like education, health, and the environment, we see a mix of federal standards and state autonomy. This framework produces a central political effect. Many moral or distributive disputes translate into federalist controversies. Instead of just debating, is this policy good? We debate who has the right to decide this policy. Federalism functions as a second language of politics, where conflicts of values are reformulated as conflicts of jurisdiction. Finally, we must examine the constitutional toolkit that manages this friction, the normative tripod of federalism. First, we have the Supremacy Clause in Article 6. This establishes that the Constitution and valid federal laws constitute the supreme law of the land. Its function is to resolve normative conflicts by ensuring a clear legal hierarchy where national consistency prevails. Second, we have the Commerce Clause in Article 1, Section 8. This authorizes Congress to regulate interstate commerce and has been the most important foundation for the expansion of federal power. It serves as the bridge between federalism and economic modernity, allowing national coordination in an integrated economy. On the other side of the scale, we have the 10th Amendment. It states that powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people. In contemporary practice, this functions as a powerful political symbol and interpretive norm, invoked to defend regulatory autonomy and resist federal mandates. Its importance lies in keeping open the question of remaining powers. Everything not explicitly enumerated remains contested territory. So, as we conclude this module, remember that American federalism does not seek to eliminate conflict, but to manage it. It creates a constitutional battlefield where ambition checks ambition, and where the balance between a uniform national standard and state-level diversity is constantly renegotiated. Whether we are discussing environmental protection in the Everglades or healthcare policy in Miami-Dade, we are engaging in this centuries-old negotiation. Thank you for your attention, and this concludes Module 1.